you think of a private investigator, what comes to mind? A messy car, long stakeouts, high-speed chases, secret gadgets. But the reality of investigations is very different from television. Behind every serious investigation, there's patience, strategy, legality, and one critical objective, which is replacing uncertainty with facts. Hopefully, you'll never need a private investigator, but if you do, this episode will clear up some questions you might have. Today, we're talking about what really happens in the world of private investigators. When should someone hire one? And how does it all work? That's today on Money and a Good Life. Hello everyone, my name's Stephanie Coombs and I'm here with my co-host, my mate and the money expert Ryan Watson. G'day Ryan.
Hi Steph, how are you?
I'm good mate. We're joined today by a very interesting guest.
Interesting indeed.
This is something that's a little bit outside of our usual wheelhouse.
Well, certainly outside of my comfort zone, so let's see where we take it.
I'm very excited by this one. We're joined by Richard James. He's the Director and Principal Investigator of RIVICA Investigations and Covert Solutions, based in South Melbourne. Richard has more than 30 years' experience spanning UK law enforcement and Australian anti-corruption agencies. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning, Stephanie. Hi, Ryan.
Hey.
You've had an extraordinary career, right? You've obviously had a lot of interesting little parts of your professional life.
Yeah, that's safe to say.
Yeah, I think it is. So why did you end up transitioning from government and law enforcement into having your own private investigation firm?
Look, there's a couple of stories or a couple of reasons behind that, to be honest. I mean, I'd been doing it for a long time. Obviously 15 years in the UK, almost 12 years with corruption agencies. I think the biggest challenge for me was growing a family while still working in that arena. Because, I mean, the entire time I was working in Australia, I was never known as my real name. I worked under assumed identities, which was fine for me. But when I had a son and, you know, my boy was growing up, my wife had to continue that cover story. So nobody knew where I worked, what I did. It was always very bland and boring, just so people wouldn't ask any more questions. And my wife had to continue that story with people we met. And it got to a point where my son was going to school and it came up to a day where the children were asked to bring their parents in, so meet the dad day. And so I go in to his classroom, a classroom of 5 and 6 year olds. And all the dads were there, telling them about their careers. There's pilots, military, police. And I had to go in there and basically play everything down. I was just a risk assessor. I fly in, fly out, very boring. And watching the children's faces when some dads were talking, their chins would drop.
I immediately go fireman. There's always there's always a fireman.
They were lawyers.
Yeah.
And I saw their faces when I started saying the type of work I was doing, and in particular I saw my son's face. It wasn't like embarrassment, but it was like his head down thinking, oh gosh, that's nothing compared to my mate next to me whose father's in the military flying helicopters.
Meanwhile, you've got the coolest job of all of them.
Look, the night before, and I could never say this, the night before we were investigating serious organised crime. We were doing a covert operation where we were installing stuff in a clubhouse, and I got in at 6 o'clock after working all night and going to do this, and I'm thinking, this is hard for me, and is this really what I want to do and continue forever? And I always wanted to work for myself, but that was the clinch. That was the time where I said, you know what, I can't keep doing this. And a decision was made then when I came back home and said, look, it's time to move back to Victoria, where my wife was from. So she never settled in where we were. Mm-hmm. And it was a good reason, so make a change and work for myself. And I suppose that was the reason why I decided to come out of working for the government. And I wanted to leave a legacy. I wanted to be known for what I'd done, and everything we worked on in the corruption is all, we never talk about it.
Well, it's the complete opposite, right?
It is.
You've really flipped the script here.
Pretty much. And that was the biggest challenge for me as well, coming from working where nobody knew who I was, being classed as a specialist within government sectors, and then coming out of that industry and working in the private sector where nobody knew me. Nobody knew my name. And I was basically starting from scratch, wanting to leave a legacy for the work I do and the people I help.
You can't really put it on LinkedIn, can you? Where it's like, had this amazing covert operation. My cover wasn't blown.
You can basically put anything on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly. I could put that on LinkedIn, but I'd be lying. But yeah, if it's so true, you don't get recognition for your work outside of very small circles.
Not at all. And even to the extreme of that, we're not allowed to talk about any work we've done.
I'm such
in those
a gossip.
industries.
I would not. I couldn't do covert operations. I'm desperate to blab.
And look, and that was the reason why I wanted to set up my company and the reason behind the name of the company, which is something, as I said, I wanted to leave a legacy, something to be remembered for and be proud of in my old days when I'm retired and looking back on my life. And that's why the company's name is based on an anagram of mine, my wife, and my son. In names.
That's such a nice way of including your family in something that was obviously a decision you made for your family too.
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't think about the business or the commercial aspect of the name because it's a pain.
What happens when you had an identity that you had been living under and then you went into the private sector and then what did you do? Did you just abandon the person that you had been pretending to be and then start again? How do you move
Pretty
from
much. Because obviously you're working under assumed identities. You've got different driving license, different passports. Yeah. So you're known as that person. And you play that in your real life as well as your work life because you've got to carry it through because you don't know who you might meet.
That just seems extraordinary, Richard.
It's
a complete other world, right, Steph?
Do you know what?
Yeah.
When I moved to Australia and I worked in this, it was exciting. It was very clandestine, it's secret. And I thought, oh, this is great. Australia does this really well, coming from the UK. But it does wear you down after a long time, and especially when your priorities change in life. So when I moved back to Victoria, it was like starting from scratch. Nobody knew me. And I had a high level of experience and specialist knowledge in a certain field, which is not a normal field.
Yeah.
I suppose I marketed myself as a consultant, trainer and specialist. Mm-hmm. So the business sort of went firstly into that training area where I'd go overseas to the Middle East and train. Because I could market my specialist field as to what I can teach people. Because obviously the experience and what I was doing within the government. I'd go to Canberra and train the federal police. I'd work with ASIO, Defence, in professional standards and training up in different areas. So I did that first of all when I moved out, and quite quickly although I enjoy training, I still love that excitement of being in close to somebody, gathering evidence without their knowledge, and helping people. Coming to a result where it helps people's lives. So I really wanted to get back into that field and wind back on being away from home and doing the overseas travels and training to set up a company where I can provide the same level of expertise and service, but in the corporate and private sector. And in order to do that, I had to basically, I was like a mercenary. I just worked for any other PI company as an individual operator for 18 months whilst doing the training courses to see how they operated and what they expected in the private sector. And that was another eye opener for me because the standards were not what I expected when it comes to the planning strategy, the level of evidence and the continuity expected in the world I've been in. It's got to stand up in court. Yeah. And it just wasn't the same in the private sector. And that's where I realized, this is where I can make my mark. This is where I can really make a difference and improve the standards and show that the private investigation role and the job we do it should stand up in court, and we can offer
be professional.
Yeah.
So who are the people? Like, obviously you've come through from very professional government base of experience. What does the rest of the private investigation world
look? It's quite unique because most people who enjoy law enforcement investigation, they start off as an investigator or in some sort of agency and with always the intention to wanting to go into the police. I've pretty much done it the total opposite way around. I've done the experience, the career in the police, in corruption agencies, working in intelligence, and I've come back to the private sector. So in reality, anybody can become a private investigator, provided they do the training, the Certificate 3 Investigative Services course, they apply for their license. That gives them the ability to call themselves an investigator.
How onerous is that process, Richard?
Look, the first part is the course. It's as I said, it's a 3-week. I think it's about 3 weeks course. Okay. It's a certificate 3. It's a course that allows you to apply for your license. I don't think it gives you sufficient knowledge and the tools to actually go out there.
3 weeks a short period of time, right? So.
I'd say so, yeah.
But not only that, it's 3 weeks of learning, interviewing, taking statements, surveillance, finding people. To give you an example, when I was taught surveillance, I had to do driving courses first. I had to do a basic, intermediate, advanced driving course. So that was almost 3 months of driving before I was even allowed to go on a surveillance course. Okay. Then the first surveillance course, 4 weeks, static surveillance, just sitting in OPs, observation posts, watching through a window or through a hide. Yeah. Then the next course was foot surveillance, where it was another 4 weeks where we were taught to follow someone on foot. Yeah. And then the third course was the advanced surveillance, which is mobile surveillance, driving vehicles, transitioning from foot to vehicles, setting up OPs. So the level of training law enforcement and government agencies go through to do surveillance is huge and very intense, and the skills and the trade craft you learn is second to none. Yep. And you cannot expect a private individual who's done a 3-week course at an RTO to pick up all those skills immediately.
Well, 3 weeks versus there was 5 months there plus the advanced course.
Yeah, so, and then all the experience you get in every situation. You know, every situation is different. It can be, you can plan for a situation with the time, the location, the traffic, the subject on one day and it works perfect. You can do exactly the same the next day, it won't work. Because there's so many outside criteria and influences that can affect a result and affect how effective you are at your job. Yeah.
Now, tell me about the kinds of people who will seek out your services.
The common factor is people who've got concerns, people who have lost trust in whatever circumstance it might be. It could be a personal relationship. It could be a business relationship. So if it comes down to the fact they've got a suspicion, they've lost trust in an individual, and they feel powerless because they don't know what's going on. They say knowledge is power. So when you lose that knowledge, you feel powerless. And human nature starts looking at the worst case scenario. People fill in the gaps as to what could be happening, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a business, whether it's an employee. You automatically think the worst. So, you know, when it goes back to the people that want to know the answers are basically that people who are under stress, probably in their lowest part of their life. Concern, the trauma, the anxiety, is people who need the answers to move on with their life. Whether it's an informed decision about a relationship, about a marriage, it's about concern for their children, what they're up to. From a business, being subject of losing stock or theft or workplace fraud through medical injuries, it all comes down to needing to know the answer. And I suppose we pride ourselves in providing a piece of evidence to give you peace of mind.
Do you often find that people who have sought out your services, they must be at this point fairly certain that there's something going on? Do you find that their suspicions are warranted, or do you find that you're dealing with a lot of people who are overly suspicious?
Yeah. Look, and as I said, you know, people will fill in the gaps, and it's always the worst case scenario. That's human nature. You think of the worst case and you automatically think that's what's happening. So, you know, in businesses, in the sort of the corporate side of investigations, there's usually there's no smoke without fire. Yeah. So there's usually something there, and there's usually something factual, you know, a loss in funds, a claim for work cover, for injuries. So there's always something there, material, which is a fact. Whereas in, I suppose, personal matters, it can be just the fact that someone's hiding their phone or a bit more secretive. And, you know, there are red flags. But I think from where we come in, you know, that initial conversation, the initial conversation or interview with the client is the most important one, because it manages the expectations. It sets apart what suspicion is and where the facts are. And then it allows us then to put a clear strategy in line to work out, you know, where we can help and what realistically we can do and what we should do, because we shouldn't always get involved. No. There's going to be times where we turn things down because we just don't think it's going to be a good return on the investment.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. You obviously would be good at reading people. So I imagine that you're reading people from the second that they step inside your office and have a conversation.
No, look, for sure, we've got to. I talk about this a lot to our clients about our integrity and our due diligence. And it's almost, we've got to choose carefully who we work for, because it's not beyond the realms of possibility. And it's happened where people use our services for, the intentions are not pure. Mm-hmm. They use us for reasons which they try and hide from us. And it's very hard to make that decision. And I'm sure I've turned down a lot of work where they were genuine, but I had that, it's not so much a gut feeling, but an instinct whereby, maybe we shouldn't be doing this, and we give them the advice. And a lot of our cases we will take on. However, we recommend first that there's a legal team involved who can direct us and identify the scope. Okay. It protects them.
So there is obviously that stereotype that we've seen, which is like sitting in cars, stakeouts, is driving rain. You've got gadgets. You've got drinking a lot of coffee. Yeah, mysterious people walking in cinema noir kind of style. That's how I like to picture it in my head. But what is actually the reality of the job in the day to day?
Oh, look, if I just mention, because my day has changed a lot since growing a business, but so I've got other sort of roles which I need to do and perform. But as a surveillance operative, yeah, you're right. I mean, the car, the vehicle is their office, their bedroom, their toilet, their canteen. It's their everything. It's also a means to follow the individuals around. So when you have that stereotypical idea of somebody sitting in a car, it's pretty close. We have to sit in a car. We don't wear trilbies and rain jackets.
You could.
We could.
You could, and I would say that you probably should, actually.
Do you know what? And if you look at any marketing material, you'll always see that.
That's so
the black
funny.
and white image with the trilby walking down a dark alley. But the truth of the matter is, surveillance tradecraft is being present but not being remembered. So it's about blending into the environment, and that's the biggest challenge for surveillance, because you can't change who you are, how tall you are, how big you are, how you look. Women are very fortunate because they wear wigs and get away with it. Men cannot get away with wearing wigs. So it's all about those triggers. It's about being remembered, and we've got to avoid that. And the skills that agents use with experience, they learn what they can and get away with. But yes, we do have to sit in cars, and often for a long, long time. It means sometimes 12 hours plus. You're just sitting in a car, not being able to move, just watching just a quarter light of a car, waiting for it to move, or a little, a doorway, waiting for somebody to leave. So it's extremely. People think sitting in a car is easy, but it's exhausting, where you're concentrating all the time on one aspect of what you're looking at, but then also being aware of your situational awareness. Who else is around you? Who else knows you're there? Who's watching you?
I don't think I have the attention span.
Well,
Do
Steph,
you?
that was going to be my question. How would you go sitting in a car for 12 hours?
Oh my God. I mean,
12 minutes?
Oh, if I had my phone on me, that's the problem, right? Good luck recruiting people for this from the coming generations. Good luck getting a Gen Z to sit in a car, stare at a one spot and not scroll.
Yeah, without going on TikTok, watching Netflix. And
that's what I do.
But it's so easy.
As a private investigator, they'll put themselves on TikTok or what they're doing. Or
it's like, hey guys, just doing a stakeout. Wait, but you laugh, but actually, I have come across that on TikTok. People who were...
No, you haven't.
100%. 100%. There's someone who's just doing a stakeout for a client, and maybe they do it later, but they don't upload it live.
Cover blown.
But that's that goes to what you were saying about you want to not be remembered. So if you make yourself the world's most famous PI, that's kind
I can see you sitting in the car listening to the radio, and then when it's time to go, the battery's dead.
Yes. Oh yeah. Or it's cold. I'm going to put the aircon on.
But even you're hitting some good points there. I mean, surveillance is done all year round, and you're sitting in a car on a 40 degree heat. It's you can't sit there with the aircon running.
No.
because that's going to draw attention. You're going to see a little pool of water under your car where the aircon is venting out. And on cold days, you can't have a car in to keep warm. So
you'll have the exhaust, you'll have the coming out.
Your vehicle missing up. So all these are indicators that someone sat in a car and potentially could be watching you.
Yeah.
So it's a very disciplined industry. Yeah. And, I've met some of the best agents in the private sector because they have that discipline, the focus, because they are on their own, and the job lives and dies on what they do and the decisions they make.
But in all seriousness, like the idea of having the attention span to be able to do this, we know that attention spans, that's not fake news. That is something we're completely aware of, that short form media has absolutely nuked people's ability to sit and do nothing. What are you going to do when you need to start recruiting younger and younger people? How do you test for attention span?
Look, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult for the older generation to concentrate and not be distracted by taking a phone call or watching Netflix or something.
Yeah.
So, it's a challenge. And you're right, there's not a great deal of young people coming into the industry, which is a huge challenge when you talk about planning for surveillance. Because, when we don't just give it to our best operative, it's your job next, you do this. You got to look at the individual you're following, the area in which they're going to be traveling to, where they expect to go, whether it's a nightclub, a workplace. And, you want to have a person with a similar profile who's going to blend into that environment. As a 60-year-old man, you're not going to follow a 21-year-old around the nightclubs and bars, not for long without being noticed.
That would get noticed.
So that's where, the different, how people look is a huge advantage to have a team where you can actually have somebody with the skills, the knowledge and the ability to blend into all those environments.
Interesting. I mean, they don't tell you this one about school, when you're doing careers advisor, they're like, have you thought about being a private investigator? If someone had said that to me, I'd be like, hell yeah.
I imagine particular skills, high patience and high detail.
Oh, well, in which case I'm out.
Well, I wasn't insinuating that, but sure.
Yeah, no, that probably isn't me. So one of the other challenges, obviously, of this job is when you are collecting evidence, you have to do it in a lawful manner. And there are complicated laws that change depending on what state you're in, whether or not you can record a conversation without someone's knowledge. I know that one because I'm in the media. But so what happens if you do collect something that happens to be, so to speak, a smoking gun, but you can't use it?
Hopefully in the field, our agents are experienced enough to know that when they can and can't collect evidence, because it's worthless. If you collect it and you're trespassing or you're breaching someone's expectation of privacy, it may be okay for the infidelity matter because they just want to know what's going on. But there's a risk because, if that is disclosed and the other party takes offense to that, they could be put in trouble themselves.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's about not having that knowledge of the law, because basically when you look at surveillance, you pretty much look at the criminal offence of stalking. Section 21A of the Crimes Act is the offence of stalking. And the only difference that investigators do is that we're licensed. We've gone through the training. We've gone through the reference checks. We've been given a license by Victoria Police for Victoria, and we're licensed to do that. But in effect, that is what we're doing is what that offence is. So you've got to be mindful of how intrusive our work can be on an individual, and be aware of that. When is an expectation of privacy? When can you record? If it's in a public place, if it's in a public domain, there's no expectation of privacy. So that is our domain where we can collect the evidence. But if somebody was, whispering to somebody in a coffee shop and you're intentionally trying to capture their conversation, then that's a no. Okay. Because there's an expectation of privacy.
You're obviously dealing with people who are in some of the worst times of their life, I'm guessing.
Yes.
if you're seeking out a private investigator because you suspect infidelity, or you're a business and you're like, I think I'm being ripped off by one of my employees, you're in a bad point. How are you managing the emotions of your clients while you're doing this sensitive work?
Look, I'd probably say this. It's probably the hardest part of my job because I speak to all the clients and, I'm always a conduit to them. Look, I've got a good support circle where I can, debrief and de-vent, but it's extremely emotionally tiring. And I created this business because I wanted to help people. So it'd be hypocritical for me just to sort of cut people off and not listen to them. So I do spend a lot of my time just listening and even to the people we don't take on and just give them that advice and support and other areas where they can seek help. Mm-hmm. But it is a challenge. And I think I've been doing it long enough where it's not a great deal surprises me anymore. But when you work, I suppose, in the public sector, helping people and you grow that empathy and understanding, and you put yourself in the position of the client and what they're going through. By doing that, you actually consider what is going to help that client as well and that person, and that's how you try and frame your responses and frame how you help them to make sure that at least they get something out of it.
You touched on then, Richard, about nothing much surprises you anymore. When's the last time that something genuinely surprised you out of the box?
Oh, just recently, I suppose. It was a matter where we were engaged by a private client, and I'm going to try and just change it a little bit. Of course, yeah. Where there was a claim gone in by a partner. The claim was in regards to financial settlements, and when the claim went through, the individual was in a wheelchair. And that was the result of the circumstances where the claim was settled. And we were engaged saying, we want to gather evidence of the capacity currently. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I was surprised because this is so obvious. Someone's in a wheelchair, they cannot work, yet on the first day we go out there, that person is jumping in the car, off to work on a building site.
Yeah. I had him playing pickleball.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
it might have been a miracle. It might have been a miracle.
Yes.
But sounds like that was a short-sighted.
But you know what? Look, we don't go out there to catch people.
No.
All our job is to go out there and report facts and report what we see as an independent, unbiased individual. And, some people think, you must be high-fiving yourself when you catch people like that. It's not really. Mm. And the same with infidelity. If we go out and we find nothing happening, that's a good day for us because we report in the facts. We don't get bonuses for catching people out, or what we do is provide people with truth, facts based on when we're working. And sometimes that's hard in itself, giving those results back to the client. So it's not only when we take on the clients and we listen to their stories and the reasons behind it, it's then giving them the results. Yeah. And going back to your initial question, Ryan, what surprises me? Yeah. I'd just come to mind the way some of our clients have reacted to bad news.
Okay.
And I relate back to a lady who was sure, and she'd been sure for months. She'd been ringing me up for months on end, not ready to go because she didn't have enough information. She didn't have those patterns and routines to make it worthwhile for us to go out and find out what was going on. And this lady had been speaking, ringing up, this has happened. I'm saying, look, it's going to be a bit difficult. And she rang up on this one day and she said, look, I just know it's happening today. We talk to our clients about the signs to look for, and this one particular morning, he'd put a change of clothes in his bag. He paid more attention to how he looked. He changed his calendar and was still trying to hide what was going on. She said, I think it's today or never. Mm-hmm. Okay, where is he? He's in the city. Do you know where?
Yeah.
Because the city is pretty big.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah.
Okay, how do you go and he drove? Where does he normally park? So
you're good, but you're not that good.
Well, she give us 2 multi-story car parks. So I said, look, the chances of us finding this car in time to find out what's going on is pretty slim, but we did it. Well, I did it. So I was in the city, so I just drove into the car park. First multi-story car park was empty, couldn't find it.
Yeah.
The second multi-story car park, we found his vehicle. Top floor, and the position of it was quite strange because, you don't really go to the top and, you take the next steps, but it was very quiet, the lights weren't working up there. So we set up on the car. And this particular job, it just worked out perfectly. The setup where we set our cameras up in our vehicles. And he came back to the car. He jumped in the back of his car and then quickly followed by another female in the back of the car. And it was obvious what was going on. And it got to a point where they got back out of the car, adjusting their clothes, and off they went. So I left a message with the client, please give me a call, get back in touch with me. I've got an update. So about half an hour later, the guy comes back to the car, so I thought he's going home again. He gets back into the back of the car again with somebody else.
Wow.
And this time I'm thinking, this can't be real. He must know we're here and he's just doing this to set us up.
Yeah.
But going back to what surprised me was my client's reaction.
Yeah.
I said, look, I haven't got good news. I said, your suspicions are confirmed. And she broke out crying, but they were tears of joy. Because she had been gaslit for so long. She knew it was happening. Nobody believed her.
Yeah.
Her partner was very charismatic, very outwardly, everybody thought he was a fantastic father, a great husband, but he had those narcissistic tendencies where, he was, it's all in your mind. It's all in your mind. I'm not doing anything. Yeah. And this had been going on for months. The trauma and pain this lady had felt was she had suddenly been vindicated. I knew what was going on. And her response, I was in tears with her.
Yeah.
Because, you expect anger. You expect, that's it. I'm going to sort this out when he comes home. Yeah. This was joy. Thank you so much.
And a lot of relief by the sounds of it, Richard.
She genuinely felt she was losing her mind.
Yeah.
And to be able to provide her the video evidence to see what we were seeing.
Yeah.
Because we shouldn't and we don't fill in the gaps. We report the facts. If we see something we describe it. We try and get footage.
Suspicions confirmed, I heard you say earlier.
Yeah, so I'm never going to say they were having intercourse in the back of the car.
Yeah.
All I could say was the movements, what was happening, the clothing get put on. Yeah, because we can't assume anything. We report on the facts, and that's how all investigators should report. It's down to the client to formulate their decisions based on what we provide them.
And how vindicating as well to have someone who is not you, a completely unbiased third-party observer who's like, I saw this thing and yes, it happened. Like that, if you're in a relationship where you don't know what is real and not real, that must have actually just been such a relief.
It was, because whenever we go on jobs, I've always got that concern, and it just comes down to where I am, I suppose, is that you want to get a result for the client. There's nothing worse than going out and nothing happens, and because, it's people's hard-earned money, and they've got to be able to see a worth in that. And it's no good for us going out and sitting in a street all day and nothing happens. It's not good for our agents because sitting in a car all day and nothing happening is very hard. You've got other people who can see you, the risk increases, but it's not good for the client, and it's not good financial returns. So it's always very difficult, and I always feel a little bit of pressure when we go out on jobs where there's no definite patterns or no definite routines which we follow in. It becomes a bit of a fishing exercise. And we always try and warn against that. And, whenever, really good bit of advice, whenever anybody wants to look at an investigation and something to do with surveillance, start making notes. So just keep records, of when these things are happening, the times, the dates, because the areas we need to know is those patterns. When do we need to work? And if somebody says, look, I just know this is going on, but I don't know when, and it's extremely hard for us to advise on when to work because you need that intelligence. And the more intelligence that people can give us, the more effective our surveillance, our strategy can be in getting the results.
How does this sort of affect your worldview, though? Because you're dealing with a bunch of people who are coming to you because their partners are cheating and you're seeing the worst of humanity. Does it make you a little bit embittered towards people?
Look, it doesn't, because everybody's got a story, and I suppose, sometimes people make mistakes, and it does make them bad people. I learned that quite early in my police career. So, I mean, I think the way it's changed me, like I said, nothing surprises me. Mm-hmm. I suppose my whole career has been, you don't turn it on and off. No, I suppose this is how it's affected me the most, because my career is more of a lifestyle, especially in the field I've worked in. You just don't go to work, do surveillance, and then drive home, not looking around, seeing who's following you, because it can be turned on us. If we're following someone who's, let's say, for example, the criminal world, we don't know who's going to be seeing us and following us to our home. So it's all about being safe as well. Because the last thing we want is people knowing where we live or following us to our office to confirm who we are. So we got to be aware all the time. And it's a lifestyle. It's not just something you turn on and off, especially when I was working in the corporate government world, because the people we looked upon were had great reasons to find out who we were and discredit us or something even worse. But if anything, the principles we teach, and this is how I suppose you live your life by, the ABCs of investigation. You assume nothing, you believe nothing, and you check everything. And, that's a good thing to go by in life. There's a lot of people out there trying to rip you off, lying to you. It's, you make those decisions based on your assessment. So if you follow those 3 little golden rules, it might put you in a better stead.
So come from a place of abundance, Steph, but have a healthy sense of pessimism. So that's what I'm hearing.
It's funny though, right? Because you can also cut it the other way. Mm-hmm. Is if you're a suspicious person and you're always expecting the worst, then that's if you assume nothing, then you come at everything from a baseline position of nothing is good or nothing is bad, and you can see everything for what it is. Like, we have all these life experiences that colour how we think people are going to deal with us. Yeah. And so if you just look at it for the facts that are, as they are presented in front of you, and you don't let your old experiences colour you, you actually probably will go through the world in a slightly more open way.
Like most things, it's balance and there's an end.
Yes.
Oh, look, I will say, I mean, it depends on the criteria, the type of work I've done. And I've done in the police world, I was able to work within a certain criminality, which I could never do now. So the work we did was a lot to do with paedophilia and children abuse, which I could do when I was a young man. I didn't have those life experiences of having a child, and so things like that I could never do now, because I wouldn't be confident that I could be unbiased and deal with what needed to be dealt in the manner it should be. And I take my hat off to everybody in the industry, in law enforcement, who has to deal with that, in the courts, in the police, in the social services. It's a very challenging environment, which I could not work in. And
managing to be professional through the whole way.
Yeah.
What have you learned about human behaviour throughout your career?
It's patterns to truth. Deceit is more measured and it takes more work. It takes more work to continue running a lie, and it'll eventually get found out. Truth have patterns, and the more you watch people, the more that unravels and it comes to play.
So what's a pattern of truth?
Truth comes from knowledge and from experiences. So you can usually tell, where that's coming from, whereas, the lies are coming from imagination. And it's really hard, and this goes back to what I tell a lot of my clients: make those notes. Mm-hmm. If they give you an excuse, where were you on this day, and make a note. If you ask him again in 2 months' time, remember that time you didn't come home? Okay. Where were you now? It's very hard to remember the same lie, especially if there's a lot going on. So certainly those areas is a lot where you can actually learn about the person you're interacting with.
Is there also truth, Richard, in terms of if people are lying, they tend to over-explain, or there's a lot of detail?
Look, they can do.
Yeah.
But people always ask me about body language and touching your nose, winking, twitching. Yeah. The practiced person can put those signs on to make them feel like how they want to be perceived. So it's always a difficulty. You know, somebody scratches his nose might just have an itchy nose. You know, somebody just might not remember, or somebody may be so their personalities that they want to show you that it didn't happen. They will try and talk as much as they can and keep it going. So, look, it's 50-50, and you couldn't just rely on that to make a baseline decision. Okay. And I think, I mean, we can go back into those interviewing techniques, because that's what we're talking about. When we talk to people in our day-to-day lives, it's a planned conversation. So the reason why when people are interviewed for criminality or offences, you'd always start off with the baseline, you know, tell me about yourself, open questions, tell me, and get them talking about what they're comfortable talking about and not what is going to cause them a reason, I need to hide this. Yeah. So then you can see the baseline when they open, they're talking about they want to talk, and then you start probing on the areas you want to talk about. You can see their body language change. Okay. You can see the discomfort, or you can see how they react. So that is something which you try and learn. But it's good if you're good at it. If you think you're good at it and you're not good, it's disastrous.
Yeah.
It's all about not making assumptions. It is easier if you just have evidence and you're not trying to be a body language expert.
Yes, yeah, because, I mean, exactly right. And there are people out there really good at reading body language, but there's people out there very good at acting their body language. So, it's hard to be an amateur in that area. It's about basing yourself on the facts, what you can prove, what is in front of you, and just checking, validating. Back to the ABCs: assume nothing, believe nothing, check everything. So whatever they're telling us, you want to check that and find something which is going to allow you to check that.
The game must have changed a lot in the last few years because, again, you've got all the physical surveillance that's going on, but now we've got this huge online presence that people have. Has that made it easier to investigate people or more complicated?
It's more complicated. And because the problem you've got with social media is that anybody can put anything on social media under any name. So the biggest challenge is to identify what is real, what is a real person, and who those people are. And that's a huge challenge we face in. And look, we don't do a lot of online investigation because that's not our wheelhouse. We're not experts at that. And the big problem you got is IP addresses. They can hide where they are, and that's why all these scams are so difficult to prosecute, because they can hide through different servers and different identities. And I suppose until laws change on accounts on social media and having to prove identification or something similar like that, it's still going to happen.
I could be a private investigator for online, like any girl who's on a dating app could be a private investigator online. Like if I get like
are you pitching to Richard?
Oh no, this is just general,
okay.
but just generally.
Just wanted to general versus pitching for okay.
Just largely, if there's a picture on Hinge and you can see like a blurry.
What's Hinge?
Oh God.
Okay,
I'm happily married. So it's like a dating app. Right. If you get like a little blurry shirt, I can find out the logo, and then I can work out their name, and then I can work out where they work, and then I can find the whole network of their social media posts. I can see their ex. What does their ex do? This makes me sound like a crazy person, but there is
not at all.
But any of my friends who've been on dating apps are extremely good.
Okay.
At or if you've been, heaven forbid, you've been seeing them for a few weeks, and then after that point,
then there's another.
I know everything about them.
Okay.
At that point, you can, because it's amazing what you can uncover.
But aren't you ruining the spontaneity then?
No, it's fun. That's
so you're asking
this is my fun.
So you're asking questions that you already know answers to.
Oh well, yes. If you're going to put it that way, maybe this is why I'm single. But the idea of maybe it's the journalist in me, but having like a tiny bit of detail and then being able to and the stuff that you can find out about a person's life, incredible.
And when you go back to the dating scene, we regularly get people wanting to check the
I'm not
person
that bad.
They've met.
Yes.
And their background and the criminal records, and there's a lot of things we can and can't do.
Yeah.
But one of our agents she's shown me all these different websites where you can put a picture up. Am I dating this man? Is he married? So there's a community around it.
Yeah, there's a Facebook group called Sis, Is This Your Man?
That's it. Yes.
Yeah, and it's where like someone's like you put up like, hey, I've been seeing this guy. He's a bit shady. What do you think? And then you're crowdsourcing like 2,000 women who are like, that's my, I used to go to university with him. He was like,
I think
he's
there's
bad
a new
news.
Netflix show on this.
Yeah,
there's a guy, Brendan or someone. Like,
it's incredible, the information. It's just crowdsourcing information, just all these women.
I'm so happy to be boring.
Exactly.
This is great.
You missed out on all of this, but it is extremely fun. Extremely fun. Okay, and final question. Practically speaking, if someone wanted to seek out a private investigator, what are they expecting to pay? And I know that's a big question, and I'm sure it depends on a lot of factors. And what should they be aware of before they contact a private investigator?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's important they do their due diligence. They got to check who they're going to work with, because I think like with a lot of industries, there's a lot of cowboys out there. So look, the first thing they've got to do their background, who they're going to be engaging, make sure their company is professional, they're licensed, they've got insurance, they've got a real website, they've been working longer than 2 months. So the first thing is look at a reputable company who are open about who works for them and what they do. Look at the reviews, see how clients have how they like the services and the results and how they've been treated. But realistically, it's about being aware of what we can and can't do. We get so many questions. Can you track this phone? Can you put a GPS tracker? Those things are illegal. We cannot break laws. We do not intercept phone calls. We can't go through WhatsApp messages. We can't look at a private Facebook account.
You can, Steph.
Yeah.
But Richard
can't. Get in touch with me. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I do it for fun, though. Yeah.
So realistically, if somebody's thinking about, engaging an investigator, look at the reasons why. What is it you want to find out? Is what you're asking for legal? Is it achievable? A conversation with an investigator doesn't cost anything. Most companies will talk through what they can and can't do. But when there's an instance where we can help, those patterns and routines, it's not always easy when they come to us. I don't know when it's happening. So it may not be the right time. You may need an investigator, but now might not be the right time. Do some homework, make some notes, keep some times, become more observant. But what I would say is if there's a suspicion, probably don't broach that straight away. If you have an intention of using somebody down the path, if you can, don't address it with that person, because if it gets addressed, they're going to change their behaviour. They're going to change their patterns. It makes the investigation a lot harder. We want to be able to work on people who has no expectations of being suspected of doing anything, where there's workplace or infidelity or anything similar. We want them to go about their day as they would. It makes our job a lot easier, and it makes our investigation a lot more effective.
And what should you put aside? Like, if you've got $400, you're probably not going to be in the market for a private investigator. What's the sort of budget that you should put?
Look, it depends on the service. Surveillance and any sort of protracted investigation will probably be billed on an hourly rate. So, the longer it's going to take, the more work you want, the more it's going to cost you. Services like finding people, we refer to as skip tracing or background checks, they predominantly could be a sort of one-off fee. This is what we charge to go and check all databases, report back to you. And you could be looking at anything from 400 up to 1,500. Again, depending on how much data there's there, how much work's involved, the databases, the sources you've got to find. And that's just purely a desktop investigation. If you need to go out and you're going to be paying for travel, or depending on where the event is or where you got to go, you got to expect to have to pay the agent to go there to do the work and then come back, and whatever the hourly rate is.
Richard, thank you so much for your time. I hope I never need your services, but I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been very interesting.
It's been fun, thank you.
And if you feel like you got some value out of this conversation, do make sure you follow Money and a Good Life wherever you're listening now, so you don't miss an episode. We'll see you next time. Advice given in this podcast is general in nature and is not intended to influence decisions about investing or financial products. Our listeners should always seek their own professional advice that considers their own personal circumstances before making any financial decisions.